And Dr. Montgomery, we talked last week about David Hume and the fact that many of our professors that watch, many of our lawyers and students at the university, they have been thrown off base by Hume's argument concerning the miraculous, that it can't happen, that we can't verify the miraculous in history. And I think we ought to summarize what Hume said again and start there and then move on to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and especially as you are an attorney, from a lawyer's point of view, and maybe compare the lawyer's point of view versus the theologian's high point of view, why they might look at this a little differently, and who would we most want to have take a look at this evidence. Start us off with the fact of a summary from last week concerning Hume, and why is the resurrection important to talk about anyway?
Most philosophical arguments against the miraculous derive from the 18th century philosopher David Hume, and Hume engaged in a perfectly circular piece of reasoning. He said that there is uniform experience against the miraculous, and he therefore concluded that miracles don't occur. But that's, as C.S. Lewis has pointed out, just two ways of saying the same thing. It's like saying if miracles don't occur, why then miracles don't occur? Unfortunately, there's been a tendency in the history of philosophy for philosophers to assume that you can solve problems as to the nature of things by some kind of deductive reasoning from first principles. But this is a very mysterious universe. It is a relativistic universe. We are living in an age of Einsteinian relativity, and we know perfectly well that the universe is too large to be embraced in that kind of deductive formulation. The only way we can find out that anything exists is to check the evidence for it. And that shows a difference in perspective on the part of philosophers, in many instances, from that of lawyers. Lawyers deal with the particulars of evidence. Fascinatingly enough, there are some philosophers who've begun to recognize that the lawyer's approach would be more helpful even in the field of philosophy. Stephen Toulmin, in his book The Uses of Argument, has said, let's use the model of jurisprudence, because lawyers are concerned with investigating evidence and drawing conclusions on the basis of the evidence. And so it seems to me that if we want to deal with a question as vital to religious truth as the question of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, we've got to turn from philosophical speculation to the facts, to the evidence.
Okay, why are we getting all excited about the resurrection in the first place? Why is it important to those that are listening?
Because if a person honestly looks within himself, he knows that the problem of death is at the very heart of his own experience. Existentialists have pointed out that only in death does life become truly meaningful. Great littérateurs have used this as a central theme for what they have done. And psychologists tell us that we think about our own death perhaps once a week, maybe even more frequently. We know that this is the overarching problem that we face. So, if someone comes along and says, I can solve that problem, he who believes in me shall never see death, and he goes ahead and he demonstrates that he can conquer death, well, you'll never have a better reason for worship as long as you live.